42 years in power, Muammar Gaddafi has reportedly been driven from Tripoli, if we are to believe these new radio transmissions that he's been putting out. The al-Qaeda forces have officially entered under NATO protection into the government complexes, and the new civil war quagmire can begin. And Gaddafi is telling the different tribal groups around the country to begin attacking the, quote, new al-Qaeda government. And it is an al-Qaeda government. Just last night, I was doing some more research on it and ran across more than 10 different mainstream news articles where they admit that this is al-Qaeda. That's the dominant group. And that Sharia law will now be put into effect, which should make a lot of the neocons and others very, very happy, because now they can have this clash of civilizations between the West and the, quote, extremist, which is the central banking cartel's plan. See, people tend to think of it as America versus the Muslims, or America versus the Chinese, or vice versa, or, hey, Moody's downgraded Japan. Isn't that great? Their economy's falling apart. We'll do better. That's not how economies really work. This will only hurt the United States, that Japan is slipping into a, well, it's been in a deep recession for 15 years, which you could call a depression, on the heels of Fukushima disaster. So we tend to think of this as nation states, but really it's global special interests that are above the law, perching and sitting upon the nation states, playing us off against each other. So that is some of the news, some of the information that we are going to be going over and breaking down today. Now, obviously, we'll get more into U.S. East Coast may be at risk for aftershocks. With yesterday's 5.9, it was a 5.8, upgraded to a 5.9. Also, a strong East Coast quake. Highly unusual, seismologists and other scientists that study earthquakes and other geological activities have said. Cracks discovered in the Washington Monument. Nuclear plant near epicenter, of course, shut down yesterday as a precaution. Problem is, if there's a real disaster, the government has a history of covering that up, so we don't know. Also, witnesses saw D.C. buildings shake during 5.9 earthquake that affected 8 different states and was felt all the way into Canada. So that is also coming up today. And on the Libya front, there's lots of hype now about Gaddafi and rebels in hiding. And will they release a dirty bomb on us now? And can Homeland Security eradicate all of our rights to keep us safe for the bankers to rape us? Excuse me, sorry, had a Freudian slip. Keep us safe from al-Qaeda, who is Gaddafi, but he's actually not al-Qaeda. Al-Qaeda's the new government, but what are you going to do at the end of the day? So that is some of the news I'll be breaking down on that front. Also, some interesting news. Ron Paul picks up steam despite minimal media coverage. KHOU television is covering that here in Texas. So he is winning more and more of the polls, or in a dead heat with Mitt Romney, Rick Perry, and Michelle Bachmann. That's why the system's still ignoring him. He still gets the least amount of coverage of any of the candidates. Even candidates that don't even show up 5 percentage points in the polls get lavish with 2, 3, 4 times the coverage that Ron Paul gets. So we're going to be going over that. And wide open phones throughout the broadcast for 30 minutes in the third hour. We're going to travel to Kentucky with a guest to look at the takeover by the banks of that state. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Okay, I'm going to run through the top stories here today, and then we're going to take a lot of your phone calls. Because, again, when I listen to rebroadcast, I always enjoy the calls, the different news items you bring up, the different directions you take us in. It's like spinning a wheel of fortune. The questions, the comments, people that disagree, people that agree. I certainly enjoy it and find it to be informative and edifying to the max. So I'm going to be giving the toll-free number out here in a few minutes after I have gone over some of the news. Then coming up for about 30 minutes for part of the third hour, Gatewood Galbraith, a perennial candidate and well-known political activist across the country based in Kentucky, is going to be coming on to discuss this news article out of Alternet, how J.P. Morgan took over all of Kentucky's financial services and why you should be scared. And it just shows the complete and total financial domination of this country. So he'll be joining us coming up. And I have other little interesting tidbits of news. The foreign ownership of our media is accelerating. Carlos Slim increases his stake in New York Times. Mexican billionaire Carlos Slim has increased his stake in the New York Times company just weeks after the U.S. newspaper group repaid the emergency $250 million loan it took from Mr. Slim in 2009, and he's now upped his stake from 6.9% to 7.3%. That's out of the Financial Times of London. Mr. Slim, who made his money with a telecommunications monopoly in Mexico and other ways. So interesting to see that going on. But, I mean, what's it matter if a monopolist baron out of Mexico is buying larger stakes, or if the Saudis own the largest percentages of Fox News Corp? I mean, at the end of the day, U.S. taxpayer money has been reportedly pumped into MSNBC, you name it. It's all just a bunch of propaganda. And that's why the establishment is so secure in their takeover of this country and the rest of the world, because they get away with bloody murder. Now, I want to get into the financial news, the big developments in Libya, the earthquake news, and more. But first, this morning it hit me. And it hits me all the time, but it really hit me that we've gone over the edge. We're not on the edge, we're over the edge. When it comes to historical corruption and tyranny really blooming, really growing. This country is just overrun by corrupt individuals carrying out corrupt practices. Our economy is more and more converting from a free market, free society to a crony, insider monopoly system. And that can only happen because we have several generations of very spoiled people, very entitled people, who are so self-centered that even as they lose their productivity, their future, and their standard of living, they still don't want to get up and get involved and take their country back. Those that are politically involved are somewhat awake across the spectrum, but they really don't get the finer details. And they also miss the larger backdrop of mega banks, powerful families, insiders, huge combines that have a decidedly anti-human, anti-family, anti-free market, really hyper-authoritarian mindset. And I've talked a lot about this. If you've studied history, you know that dictators, corrupt oligarchies, endless wars, torture, secret arrest, power-tripping ruling classes, demanding your daughters service them, going into farming belts and massacring everybody. Powerful elites, when they're not opposed, run rampant because it's their nature. They like overrunning. They like burning cities. They like wars. They don't like commerce. They use monopoly commerce to destroy real commerce. It's a scorched earth mindset, a spirit of total monopoly that sees any form of independence, strength, or beauty as its enemy. And in the final equation, that's why I am fearless. That's why I am willing to sacrifice my time, my energy, my name in this fight. I know that the road I'm on does not lead to a very happy place individually. But history also shows that when things start to get dark, when things start to get really bad, that's when the best in humanity shines. And that if we counter the deceptive narrative of the globalist and their false global economic, political, spiritual paradigm, that we can trailblaze and really give the population an alternative to the globalist model. And we are in a race. We are in a race for our very existence, our very future. I don't want to say that I'm depressed. I'm not depressed. I'm more chastened or chilled. I don't mean chilled in a relaxed way, sitting back in an easy chair, drinking a Dos Equis like Mr. Tough Guy. I mean chilled to the bone with the realization that history's roadmap has served us well, and that my analysis, Ron Paul's prognosis, other historians' view and assessment of our situation was absolutely on target, except in one facet. We tend to underestimate evil. We tend to underestimate avarice and greed and hatred and corruption. It is the great plenty. It is the prosperity that liberty generated, that freedom generated, that triggered the corrupt power elite and the robber barons to focus their energies on the United States to then overtake it and use that wealth and prowess to take over the world while at the same time destroying our republic from the inside. And it is because there's still so much food on the table and so much entertainment that even as the oxygen's taken out of the room, even as our society rots and the roads fall apart and the police are laid off and the taxes go up, and as the borders are opened and as the illegals are legalized, as the country rots into the ground, it does it incrementally so that still the average person can't recognize it. People are starting to see it, starting to smell it. But if the general public could know what I know, or could know what Ron Paul knows, or what other people who've studied common sense and history know, people would be repenting. And by repenting, even if you're not a Christian, I mean repenting, saying, I'm angry at myself for not doing more, for not being informed, for being lazy, for valuing things that don't really have value, and not appreciating things that really are the heart of civilization, the heart of freedom.